There are artists who lived like thunder, and artists who painted like breath. We remember thunder, the ear Van Gogh severed, the scandals of Caravaggio, the asylum rooms, the duels, the deaths that feel like operas, because the human mind, quietly, instinctively, is a collector of storms. Drama gives us narrative, and narrative is easier to hold than silence. But Edward Cucuel does not arrive with thunder. He arrives like light falling on a shoulder, like the last warm afternoon before the cold comes in. No tragedy to cling to, no wound loud enough for history to echo, only women in gardens. Only laughter caught between brushstrokes, only that delicate, almost dangerous softness of being present. And here is what we did with him. We forgot him, not because he lacked greatness, but because he painted the wrong thing, at the wrong moment, in the wrong country, twice. And because we have never quite learned how to see without a story of suffering to guide us. Edward Cucuel was born in San Francisco in 1875, the son of a German newspaper publisher. He left for Paris at 17, studied under the masters, wandered through France, Italy, Germany. He arrived in Munich in 1907, where he met the painter Leo Putz, and something in him finally settled. Putz was the heart of Die Scholle, a group of painters who had broken from academic tradition, not to make revolution, but to make something quieter and harder. Individual experience. Direct encounter with light. No historical subjects, no grand allegories, just the world as it actually appears when you stand in it with your eyes fully open. Putz and Cucuel spent 4 years together at Hartmannsberg Castle at Lake Chiemsee. Summers and autumns. The castle sat above the lake in the Bavarian foothills, surrounded by forests that turned golden bronze and deep amber as September came. The painters worked outside, directly from the light that arrived each morning slightly different from the day before, and left each evening a little earlier than the last. This is where Cucuel found his true subject. Not women exactly. Not flowers exactly. Light in the act of leaving. The world in the last hour before it changes. He would spend the rest of his life painting that hour. He married Clara Lotte von Marquard in 1913. He was at the height of his powers, recognized in Paris salons, shown at the Art Institute of Chicago. The following year, the world ended. This painting is a date as much as it is an image. 1918. The last year of the First World War. 4 years of industrial slaughter across the continent. And Cucuel painted this. Frida Blell, wife of his friend and mentor Leo Putz, stands in a shaft of autumn light so warm it feels almost edible. Ochre and gold and the particular bronze of leaves just before they fall, she is not posing. She is simply there, in a moment so ordinary it barely exists, caught between 1 second and the next. The light doesn't announce itself, it simply falls across her shoulder, her hair, the fabric of her dress, and holds. This is not escapism, this is something harder and more precise. This is a man who understood, perhaps without being able to say it, that the most radical thing you can do in a world being destroyed is to preserve, with absolute care, with the full force of your attention, the texture of what is being lost. His paintings from this period are not celebrations. They are elegies written in the present tense. He was painting the world while it was still there, and he knew the light in those canvases knows that it would not stay. Go to the Starnberg Lake pictures, the Kahn builder, the boat paintings he made through the 1910s and 1920s. A woman sits in a wooden rowboat, drifting on still water. She is not going anywhere in particular. The oars rest. The lake reflects the sky. Around her, the shore trees are beginning to turn, that specific Bavarian amber that arrives in September like a last generous gift before winter closes in. She trails one hand in the water. She is looking at nothing or at everything. The painting is doing something almost impossible. It is capturing stillness without making it static. The water moves imperceptibly. The light shifts across the surface in ways you can feel more than see. She exists in a moment of pure suspension, between departure and arrival, between summer and autumn, between the world's noise and her own silence. Cucuel learned from plein air painting that a scene is never still. That light changes every 20 minutes. That what you are really painting is not the woman, not the boat, not the lake, but a specific configuration of light and time that will never exist again in exactly this way. His boat paintings are not landscapes. They are measurements of transience. Every canvas is a record of something already passing. Skin is not painted in these works. It is remembered. Light does not fall. It lingers, the way light lingers on certain afternoons when you feel, without knowing why, that you should stay exactly where you are and not move. Then there is autumn solitude. And here the argument becomes more complex. The forest is burning, not with fire, with color. Wild, uncontainable amber and crimson and the deep gold of dying things. The trees are completely indifferent to her elegance. The forest doesn't know about Belle Epoque dresses, it only knows about seasons. Her dress says permanence. The forest says everything ends. And she stands between them, alone, in the specific silence of someone who has heard both arguments and cannot choose. This is Cucuel's central image. Not just beauty, not just light, beauty at the threshold of its own disappearance. The woman knows something, or is about to. The forest has been telling her something all afternoon, and the painting holds her in the moment just before she understands. These are not portraits of women resting. They are the last moments before life interrupts. A conversation that will end, a light that will move and never return the same. He was celebrated in his lifetime. Exhibitions in Paris, London, New York, Munich. The New York press was enthusiastic. Galleries across Scandinavia showed his work. He was not obscure. He was seen. And then the Second War came. He had spent 40 years building a world in Bavaria. The lakes, the light, the specific autumn of that landscape. He understood that place the way a musician understands a particular instrument, the weight of it, the resonance, what it can do that nothing else can. The war took it. He was American by birth, German by life, and after 1939 he was neither. He left Germany in 1938, settled in Pasadena, California, painted on. But the light was different. The gold was wrong. He died in 1954, largely forgotten by the art world that had once celebrated him. This is the erasure that needs explaining, because it wasn't just war. It was also the story the art market decided to tell about what painting is for. Van Gogh gave it madness. Caravaggio gave it violence. Modigliani gave it dissolution. The 20th century learned to sell paintings through biography, and the biography it wanted was suffering. A wounded life became the certificate of authenticity for serious work. We decided, without quite saying so, that joy was a minor subject, that leisure was decorative, that beauty without anguish was somehow not trying hard enough. Cucuel gave it autumn afternoons and women in boats. He gave it joy so quiet, it almost went unnoticed, and the market moved on. To louder things, to artists whose wounds were visible enough to explain their greatness. What it left behind was this: a painter who understood that the ordinary moment, the tea going cold, the conversation almost over, the sun moving behind the trees, is the only moment we ever actually have. And that to paint it with full attention and full love is not a lesser act than painting tragedy. It is perhaps the braver one. Not all greatness arrives wounded. Some of it simply sits in autumn light. Some of it paints what is about to be lost with such precision and such tenderness that 100 years later you look at the canvas and feel the warmth on your own skin. Cucuel spent his life painting the last hour. The gold before the grey, the moment before the cold. He didn't know he was painting an elegy. Or maybe he did. Maybe that's exactly what the light in those canvases is doing. Not celebrating, not escaping, witnessing.